Big boy on the rails. Hello everybody and welcome back to Old, Frail, and Decrepit. Tonight we're going to have a look at some little Lionel locomotives that are suitable for little layouts like mine. As you can see, my layout is very, very narrow, and it only stretches 8 feet across on usable track. So we're going to have a look at locomotives that could be used on this, and we're going to run them, but we're not going to run them on the outer tracks, which have the 034 track. We're going to run them on the inside with the 027. You know, there are a lot of videos out showing very large locomotives on very large layouts, but not all of us can take the entire basement for our layout. Some of you probably have a little bitty room like I've got, and you need to be able to find stuff that's going to work there. So I'm going to show you some of the ones that I use. Now, these are locomotives that I haven't highlighted in other videos. The majority of them are from the Lionel LLC era, which is what you have today. 2 of them are MPC, though one of them is kind of a question mark because it's not marked like your usual MPC locomotive. But we're going to take each one, we're going to run it on that inner track, pulling some cars, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave in all of the wrecks, derailments, and just trains falling over. So this ought to be fun. So stay along, and enjoy the videos. First thing we're going to look at here is the 8315 B&O General. Now, like all the Generals from the post-war and the MPC era, pretty much follows all the same shapes and everything. This one here just has such a good look with that blue. And how I got it was my grandson ended up with 2 of these, and I forget what I had, whether Legos or some Hot Wheels that he just had to have. So I managed to trade him for it, which I'm real pleased with that, because this is a complete and very good looking locomotive. As I mentioned before, this is from the MPC era, but it is a good running locomotive and really looks sharp. This is a locomotive I picked up at one of the train shows a couple of years ago, and of course it wasn't right at Christmas time, so there wasn't a whole lot of interest from other buyers. So I come home with this at a pretty good deal. It has smoke, runs very, very smoothly. And you can see the tender, the graphics on the tender look good. It even has the fat guy in the red suit still inside of it. Not sure how long he'll stay around, but this was a real good purchase for me, because I do set up at Christmas time, and this is one of the locomotives that usually ends up getting run. Now, this is a locomotive that I know absolutely nothing about. You can see that it's a Lionel 885. It's a 442. And it is something that is still available from Lionel. So if you've got an extra $200 just laying around doing nothing, you can pick one of these up. But why I say I don't know anything about this one is, when I got this home, this is what was in it for a motor. This perfectly brand new shape frame, wheels, side rods. This thing had never had a motor in it. And I've tried to find if this was meant to be a dummy, but there's no coupler on the front. And obviously it had never been used for anything. So if one of you would happen to have an idea what this is about, leave me a comment, let me know. What I did, because obviously I don't have anything around here that's just for pretties, what I did was I took apart an 8040, I think it was, because I had a couple of those. Took the motor out of that, slapped it into this, and that's what's running it. Because it was just too good looking to just have it sitting there without being able to be run. This next locomotive is one that I picked up at a train show a couple of years ago, I think it was. And I got there just as the show was opening and saw this on one of the tables, one of the vendors' tables. He hadn't even gotten there yet that morning. So I waited around for him to show up because this is such a cute little locomotive and it's absolutely perfect size for a small layout like mine. In fact, I've used this for pulling all sorts of things because unlike a lot of Lionel stuff, this will actually handle my inner loop with all of its curves and back curves and all the rest, just like a champ. And I've pulled Lionel cars, I've pulled Mark's cars with it. This is just a great looking little locomotive. I think it came with the Lionel Safari Railroad set. If I'm wrong, that wouldn't be the first time. But because I do see I have a tender of that, and I've never had that set. But this is just such a nice looking little locomotive, and it does a real nice job. It's got the heavier die-cast body, so it does have some pulling power, even though it is a very small locomotive. This 246 holds the distinction of being the first locomotive that I purchased that had more than 4 drive wheels. And I was in a train store and they had this, and I don't remember the price, but it must have been pretty cheap because I didn't even hesitate. I picked it up and bought it right away. It did have a soundboard in the tender, no cables at all, so I'm not sure just what kind of a sound setup it had, but the board wouldn't work, so I gutted it and gave the board and the pickup and everything that was with it to my son because he likes to play around with that kind of stuff. And again, this is a very smooth running locomotive, very good looking. It's got the usable coupler on the front, though I've never actually used that because I always just pull it straight forward. And the other interesting thing about this, one of the towns I deliver in has a derelict locomotive like this sitting out next to the highway. And I've taken pictures of that and compared it to this, and it's an almost perfect match. But this is a very nice looking locomotive, and I've used it several times because it has a decent pulling power, and it is a very quiet running locomotive. Here's number 8617, Nickel Plate Road. I picked it up last fall at a train show in northern or in northeast Iowa. It was sitting there all by itself, and I couldn't just leave it there. So I had to drag it home. This was made in 1988, and I got to looking, and the casting on the shell is pretty much identical to this NPC 8403. Now, what's odd about this being an NPC, if I can get it to focus, notice the logo there. That's the same logo as is used on the Lionel LLC era boiler castings. And you'll notice that this boiler and this are nearly identical. So, as you can see, there is quite the duplication used on these when it comes to different models. They will use the same die or the same pattern for each one. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and set these up and start running them, each one with several cars behind them. And what I'd like to do with each one of these, rather than running them on the outside rails, which is the wider radius, we're going to run them on the inside to kind of prove the point that, yes, these can be used on a small layout.